So, Anje and Alice, welcome. I would love for you all to tag team, share a little bit about yourself, where you're currently based, and what led you to move abroad in the first place.
Alice, you have the floor.
I do? Okay, I wasn't sure. We're both A's, so we can't do the name thing. Well, I actually grew up traveling since I was two. I was originally born in Bulgaria. We're already Armenian, so we were already like children of immigrants. And my dad was an engineer when I was in the 80s, so I basically traveled. I was in Algeria when I was little. I was in Syria before we moved to Canada when I was 14. So I already kind of spoke four languages. And lucky for me, when I moved to Canada, not only did I have to learn French, English really well, and then I ended up learning Spanish.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I love Spanish. And once you speak French, Spanish is so easy. There's nothing harder than French that I've learned. And during COVID, the second year I was in Toronto, I was paying a lot of rent, and I was like, I have my job is fully remote. Why am I here? I could go all over Latin America. It's the same time zone, and I can live a lot cheaper than paying rent in Toronto. That was my original. And also in Canada, I don't know where you guys are based, but in Canada it was pretty crazy and very alienating to be alone at home, especially working from home and everything from home. So I was like, well, I can at least enjoy myself and see part of the world doing that. So in 2021, I went to Mexico, and then eventually I went to Colombia, Ecuador, Bolivia, and I'm missing Peru that I went to this year. So I've been doing this for maybe 3 years now, 3.5. And I fell in love with Medellin because, exactly, speaking of community. So this is a very long-winded answer to say finding community is really finding like the right place. And I thought of all the cities I went, I really fell in love with Medellin, Colombia, because it really had that sense of community. And it was also a city, but there was so much nature. There was like whatever you wanted to find, you could find in a community. Both expats and locals were open. So that's how my journey started. And that kind of is what led me here.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Anje.
I love how Alice's story unfolded because mine was very similar to that in terms of being super excited to start traveling again once COVID kind of lightened up. But my name is Anje, and I am from Houston, Texas originally. My father went to the Army when I was really young, so he ended up moving to California. So I would always kind of go back and forth between Texas to California. I ended up living in San Diego for 10 years, and that's actually where I really started doing the majority of my adult traveling, um, going to mostly remote islands and places. I actually got a chance to spend some time in Canada, a really cool place called Hornby Island off the coast of
Oh.
Vancouver. You know Hornby?
I've lived in Vancouver, but I don't know Thornby. No. Interesting.
Hornby. It's like
Oh, yeah, you're wet out there.
like Denman, then Hornby. But yeah, anyway, so I always had the travel bug, always really wanted to explore other cultures and countries. And when COVID happened and things, got a little bit lighter and restrictions for people to be able to travel more, I was deciding like maybe to move outside of San Diego. Also for similar reasons, rent was just crazy expensive. I was no longer performing in my band, and just started going all around the states and kind of hit a wall with the states and was like, all right, let's go further. Which fortunately led me to spend about 3 months in Mexico, where I got a chance to learn a little bit of Spanish and kind of gave me that confidence to go even further with it. And now I have been living here in Costa Rica for 3 years now. And building community for me is huge because I have such a huge community and also fan base in San Diego. And so being an expat in a place that's foreign and like learning the culture, learning the language, having people that at least could be somewhat similar or like-minded was going to be key to like integrating fully into being here.
Awesome. I totally relate to both of your stories around like the kind of like zigzag way we end up in the places that we end up. Super, super relatable, but also I think speaks to our inner compass and like our willingness to listen to the navigation of like where our spirit's navigating us versus maybe some societal pressures of like settling down or staying put in a place that like doesn't really speak to us in our current state of life. So thank you both for sharing that. What I am really curious about is we all know moving is exciting, but it also can be a little bit isolating when you're moving abroad. And so I'm curious if there were any surprises that came up for you in trying to find community when you first landed in your new home location.
I would say I spoke Spanish, so I thought it would be easy to make local friends. And I didn't realize how different the culture is, even though, like, I never thought of Latin America as that different, but they're just like yeah, I think socially people are very different. And it took me a while to get used to that because, it's really easy to make plans here at home with people. I mean, COVID made that a little harder, but overall, we communicate differently or the expectation is different. So I think it's all about adjusting your expectations and learning to go with the flow. I think just for myself, I was like, don't overthink it. Don't like analyze it. It is what it is. You just have to kind of go with the flow. And I think for me, that's a challenge, like knowing my personality. So for me, I was like, I need to just challenge myself and learn to go with the flow and just realize that things are going to be different than what I'm used to. But I also left because I was like not happy with what I had. So I
That's
have
a
to
good
be
point.
open-minded. Yeah.
Really good point.
Yeah. Yeah, culturally, it's huge to be in a place and understand like you kind of have to leave some of your things behind, some of your colloquialisms as it is. Like it's one of those things that takes time. It takes process. Like I think just in general, coming from a very fast-paced type of city, even though San Diego's very like laid back and culturally it's surfy and chill and all that type of thing, just the pace in which everybody is moving is
Yeah.
completely different when you come to a Latin country, especially someplace like Costa Rica. And I kind of had to learn to take a beat and to
Yeah.
slow down.
Many beats. Yes.
And I think that is a big difference with the culture. Seeing how people like really focus on like making sure that they're with family, and that was something that I had to integrate too. So taking the time to have the coffee, to have the bread, to have the cheese, and to have that moment to talk and connect. And yeah, I think that was huge for me. But I think luckily I was able to find people pretty much right away. I think that Costa Rica definitely attracts a lot of people that are on the go and that are active and they want to be involved in doing things. And so once I was able to find these spaces and these forums and these online communities, now I knew what was popping and where things were going off. And that's where I needed to be.
That is great. Hold that thought because we're going to dive into some of the tips and recommendations you have on those places and groups to help us find some more in a little bit. So I definitely want to hear what you were able to use to tap into that. What I'm also curious about right now is how's your identity played a role, whether it's like your race, your religion, your relationship status, in forming some of your community in your abroad homes.
I think there's something really interesting, and I don't know what you guys think about that, but there's so many single women travelers.
Yeah.
As a single women traveler, like it's so easy to meet other single women travelers. We're very open-minded. We're very like, I find it's a lot easier yeah, I feel blessed to be a single woman traveler because I feel like there's very few men traveling single, but this is not about men specifically. It's just women are much more open, resilient, adaptable when we travel, and in that way, like it's been really easy to connect with women, I would say specifically, and single women travelers. And in that sense, like I feel really blessed. I Other than that, I haven't looked for any specific community. It's just more that's how I end up making connections because when we talk about like how let's say there's WhatsApp groups and interest groups and things like that, and then there's people who are willing to go out there and meet other strangers. A lot of times it's going to be like single women basically. So I feel pretty lucky in that sense. It's been pretty easy to make connections once you find the right place.
Like both what you're gravitating to, but also what's available in the location
Yes.
because the demographics tend to be I don't know if the word skewed to a higher populations of like single, like solo women traveling.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, single woman traveling. I think that coming to Costa Rica as a solo traveler, I was very open to the idea of meeting mostly the people of the land, but I also knew that there would be a little bit of a boundary with the language for me because I'm still learning, still in that process. So being able to come into an area like Puerto Viejo in Limon, I was immediately embraced by Black women. They saw me sitting alone. They were like, hey, here are the resources. This is what we're doing. Let's connect. Let's stay in touch. And that was huge. It really actually made me feel like, okay, there are people here that actually I could align with, at least the way that we look, and not feeling the disparity of that in a particular area, because I think that colorism is something that I definitely have seen within the Latin culture. And like in San Jose, Costa Rica, for example, you're going to have a lot more people that are more of that white Spanish type of vibe. And then on this side, you have the South Caribbean. And so finding community in both spaces were completely different for me. In San Jose, I found that I built online community, and that's what helped me. And then here, I actually got to see those people more in the flesh. And I think a big thing for me too is like feeling safe as a LGBTQ plus IA character, traveler, human. I needed to also find those spaces that would allow me to feel comfortable to express that. And luckily, San Jose has a huge population of gays, and it's amazing. Definitely where I've moved to now is a lot smaller, but I also feel like nobody really cares. So that's nice.
That's a good point. Yeah. It's like there isn't necessarily, it's not something like you have to like lead with. It's just another feature of your existence. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's an interesting point. Something that I've been reflecting on in my travels is that I tend to feel the most embraced or build like what I think to be the most like valuable friendships in my travels with people in the queer community. Like it always seems the most the most seamless integration, and the conversations I feel like I've seen consistently like no matter like where I'm at in the world, be pretty consistent in like just shared interests and shared thoughts about how we critically think about the world and the type of like humanity we want to exist in. And yeah, that was a really interesting like reflection I've been thinking about lately of like, oh wow, like there's definitely some like patterns here of community driven like interest that I'm gravitating towards. And I think that speaks really highly too of like what does safety look like when we're traveling, and like me as a solo female traveler, what are the communities that feel the safest for me to naturally like become a part of. And yeah, just random 2 cents that popped in my head on this question.
But I agree with you. Safety is like so important, and I don't know. I felt safe so far most of the time, but there's always situations and settings that I choose not to be part of. And I think that's what safety is like choosing like not to put yourself in situations that could do that. But also as a single woman, like I think you just have to be smarter about where you put yourself. For example, in Medellin, there's a lot of, there's a lot of a type of tourist directed crime, but as a single woman traveler, I've never felt unsafe. So it's really like where is the right, someone else might not feel safe there, but I personally always felt safe. But there's also like I also don't put myself in certain situations. I avoid them like the plague, basically. So I don't know, what do you feel, what do you think about that in Anya, right? Am I saying it right? Angela, yeah. Okay. So yeah, how do you feel about safety? Because I feel like that's something we always have to like think about in the back of our minds.
Yeah, I think it is something that we always have to think about in the back of our minds, but I do feel like I kind of moved to an area where I felt like it was going to be a lot less of those factors to consider. I think a lot of people will put a stigmatism or a stigma on this area specifically because it's a port it's close to the port. We hear a lot of crime happens in Limon Centro, but if you go an hour south, you have a lot less of that drama. And also going to a country that doesn't have an army, that's not like overly heavily policed and not using a bunch of guns everywhere. Like I feel at peace for the most part. I know not to be in certain areas at a certain time. I know not to be alone. I know that you know, these are things that can happen no matter where you are in the world, and you always have to, you know, keep your guard up to some extent. But I've been able to relax a lot of that, which was some of the things that I was feeling in the States that helped to push me away. It's like, I don't feel as safe here. I feel like I'm a potential target all the time. I feel like I just can't relax. It's just so much as a police officer will to pull up next to me. So I've had to reshape my mind that these people that are here are mostly here to help. They're not really here to start problems. So that has been nice to kind of feel that tension and that nervous system relax because of how safe I do feel for the most part here. I know people that leave their doors open around here. I'm not one of those, but you know, that is something that people can do, you know, for the most part.
Thank you both for sharing those like super important points around travel and like what safety looks like wherever we're at. It does matter, right? Like I know the experience of being in places, Anje, like you mentioned, right? Like not flinching when you see a police officer, or I know like in Thailand, seeing people just like leave their helmets on their motos and like leave the keys in the moto. Like you're not worrying about anyone stealing your stuff. It's not even like part of the cultural norm for that to happen. And it's almost like we get to experience this waiting to exhale moment where the things that we are subconsciously holding on to and are feeling tension in our body from as a norm in our societies back home, aren't a factor, and we get to live in not only a safer physical space but a safer like mental space as well, which makes a huge difference. And I think what also, whether people like realize it or not, attracts a lot of people to travel is it's the healing and like health component of that experience, where they get to know what it's like to live uninterrupted. So just to think about how you're building these safe spaces and this sense of community, I'd love to hear if there are any like apps or groups or different tools that you all have used in your journey in like building community abroad.
Okay, I'll go. Just so I always go to Facebook first, and if there's specific interests I have, I'll ask if there's groups there or if there's groups on WhatsApp. So whenever, yeah, people will always give you like, I think the best place for groups is on WhatsApp if you actually want to meet people. There's so many events there, but I always start with Facebook and then I get directed from there. I also like to really, before I go somewhere, a lot of times I would follow like Instagram accounts of local, maybe it's spiritual people, like I would do, you know, an Akashic Records reading when I was in Ecuador, because I followed this one lady who did like bats and Akashic Records. So I would really look for things in advance a little bit or over time just to see what I'm interested in doing and kind of connecting. And you can really tell quickly by the amount of activity in these groups how strong the community there is or isn't, or how long it's going to take you to make friends, because it doesn't mean that it's not your place if it's not strong. It's just going to take you longer to make friends, meet people, and you just have to be patient, and it might take a while, and you just have to be okay with that. So that's how it's happened for me. And that's why I like Medellin, because I think they have too many groups. It's that actually has too many groups. It was like every week someone starts a new group and we're actually like, we've had enough, like no more groups, like we don't want this. There's a whole website that directs you. There's like literally a group for every activity you could think of, and it's actually too much. It's actually too much. But in Bolivia, they won't even answer your question on a Facebook group. So it's really, you can tell kind of the vibe based on these groups very quickly. Yeah.
The Facebook groups for travel are literally the only thing that's saving me from not deleting my Facebook profile.
That's what I always say.
I'm going to need it when I'm going places. Yeah.
Marketplace and Facebook groups. That's it. Yeah, selling things and connecting with people when I'm traveling.
It's so real.
I 100% agree. I don't think I ever used Facebook this much in my life, but it was a good resource when I first moved here to figure out where people were, what they were doing. I think all of those groups help you to kind of narrow down if you're going to be able to connect or be able to participate in anything outside of whatever your immediate interest. So yes, the thing for me, like in terms of like meeting my partner, was downloading an app called Tammy, and this is an app that's specific towards LGBTQ plus IA um, groups and open to everyone. And so from that, I was able to meet my wife, and I think that was something that was huge for me because I had never really delved into like that because I always kind of viewed it as more like a hookup type culture type thing, and that was not what I was looking for. And I was able to meet another really good friend through that. So Facebook, the dating app, which has since been deleted, obviously. But these are the things that can help to bring you closer to community. And of course, the WhatsApp groups on this side specifically in Puerto Viejo has been more helpful to learning about what's going on, what people are selling, what the events are, especially when it pertains to music. I'm really big into music and have been able to share that with others now just from being on these groups. And now I get to have a regular night at Hot Rocks where I'm singing on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So, like, it's really taken off for my particular interest.
Are there particular things that have made you all feel at home? Like Anje, you just mentioned the integration, like you've done so well within the local community, whether it is you like being a part of a local business or you running your own business. Like, what are the things, obviously, meeting your partner, like, what are the things that have really like made that signal, like, oh, wait, this is home now for you all?
Yeah, I think for me, like, I always said this because there was times in my life where I was unhoused, and I always would say in that time period that I feel at home in my body. So if my body is able to regulate what I'm processing on the outside, then I can really start to settle into this space. And one of the biggest things for me is being very close to nature, and this area just boasts in nature. So being close to water and having access to animals, like it makes me feel like, okay, I'm at home, I'm at peace. Obviously, putting those other pieces together with community and people and family, that has helped. But I think overall, just being at home in my body is knowing that I'm giving myself the opportunity to embrace the outside. It's like osmosis. If there's peace outside of me, then there should be peace within me. And of course, there's all disruptions throughout the world, but I feel like I've aligned myself with a place that hopes to slow me down and makes me feel like, okay, this is what home looks like now.
Alice, what about you? Do you relate to that sentiment?
I haven't. I can't say that I found home. It's actually on my list of things to do this year or next year. I think
That's so relatable.
at first I really was like, because I want to like buy land and start my own kind of place. And I really like thought Colombia because of the nature. To your point, I also love nature. I think that's why I fell in love with the place. But then I started thinking about like, okay, dating for me, all of that never worked out. So, and it's not because I didn't try, it's just it didn't work out, it didn't work out. And do I see myself here long term, especially as a single woman, like buying property? And that's not the place for me. But I would say I felt it took me 3 years to feel like it felt like home, even though I wouldn't say it's my like forever home. But it was more knowing that if something goes wrong, there's people who cared and I can call someone. Like I really realized like the digital nomad life, like I want to find a home because a year and a half ago I was walking down the street in Colombia and there was something sticking off this bus stop, a metal thing, and I tried to avoid some people, and then I ripped my thigh basically with this metal thing. And then I've never been to the hospital or anything, never had to. Anyway, it was a whole thing, and that's when it makes you realize, okay, do I feel like if something like this happens, is there anyone I can call because my family's not here?
Yeah.
And that's when you started wondering, like, okay, is this a place where I see myself? And I mean, it does. I think it's possible to build the people community, but it's also like, do I see myself in this society, like living this kind of life long term? And that's when you're literally like, okay, I really want to go home. I remember I was like, I want to go home to my. Luckily, I was 3 weeks away from the plane going home anyway. I usually come back to Canada in the summer, but that's when I realized like I want my home because I want to be able to know who to call when something happens like this and have like that nervous system regulation. Speaking of the nervous system regulation, and normally like, and I had people there that I could call on, but it's not the same. So I would say, yeah, I think it's, if you had a difficult situation to go through and you were in that place, how would you feel? That's how you kind of know if you're home or not. And that's when I was like, okay, no, I need to figure out where home is, even though I like it here and I would come back to visit for sure.
That was a very, very clear and understandable and relatable sentiment. And as someone who has needed support abroad, Anje actually has been on my support circle, and one of those people that have like confirmed like, oh, okay, this is home, like I do have people here.
Mhm.
So I 100% get what you were saying, Alice. And grateful also to have friends like Anje, and helping to like solidify like what that feeling actually is of home, outside of just like the place. It's like, how do the people help to secure that positionality like for us. Really, really great, good point there. All right, y'all. I have a question. Obviously, some challenges show up when we're doing anything. Of course, that wouldn't be any different when we're moving abroad or trying to integrate into a new expat community. What are some challenges or pushback that you have had moving into an expat community? And also, what are some flags or things that make you cringe when you're watching other expats move into the new communities as well?
I have a big pet peeve with people who live in a bubble. I don't know. I was like, you left your old bubble because it sucked, and now you're coming here and you're trying to duplicate it with like yoga coffee shops. And so there's like every time someone's in a Facebook group in Medellin, and they're always like, where is the best neighborhood with coffee shop and yoga? And I'm just like, oh man, I just want to roll my eyes for the millionth time because it's like that's what makes me roll my eyes and kind of cringe is like expats who've been and people who've even like bought property and have been there for years and they don't speak the language yet.
Mm-hmm.
That like drives me crazy because it's like you can speak enough if you're gonna stay here for a while. You can kind of make it
You
a
invested.
intentional. Yeah, it takes
Mm-hmm.
time. Like I was lucky to learn as a young adult, but you can still learn it, and I think that shows respect. I really like expats who take their time to actually like meet local people and give back. Like I also volunteered. I really enjoyed that. Connecting with a local girl and like teaching her English, and it was really great to see kind of her evolution. So for me, what's cringy is really like people not taking the time and then talking down to locals, like acting like they own the place just because they have a little more money here. And it's like if you go back home, you're poor too. So I don't know why you think you're the king of like the city for the next 3 days. So there's a lot of that. I would say there's a lot of also, I think, different kind of energy when people are dating when you're traveling. That's difficult too. That's a little bit cringe sometimes. But I think mostly like people who don't want to get out of their comfort zone or be open minded and like get out of their bubble. For me, it's really important not to be like in a bubble no matter where I live. So yeah.
Great points.
Amazing points. I can take all of those points and say same, same, same.
Done.
um, the first part of your question, though, Kristina, was about not what was cringy, but
Challenges. Have you faced any challenges integrating into the expat community?
yeah, I definitely have faced challenges here. I think that the challenging thing is recognizing that even if you are coming from the same country or you might look the same in terms of your skin or complexion, doesn't mean that you're going to immediately vibe. And I think a lot of times people come here and they're like, oh, I found a community of people that are doing this thing. And then you realize, okay, very quickly that, okay, I'm not going to vibe with all of these people. So you have to do a very intensive, like, weeding out process of really like seeing who your people are. So it has been challenging. I kind of felt like I was sometimes like not rich enough, but not poor enough, but not middle class enough. Like having enough, but not having enough, right? Like in some spaces, I felt like a lot of people that came uh, from the States kind of had like, you know, like a little bit of a dick measuring contest that they wanted to go through before even getting to know you, like making sure that your finances are well enough for you to even be here, like all of these types of checks and balances. And that was stuff that was like, okay, I don't like that. You know, I'd rather not have those things be the leading part of our conversation. Like, let's talk about how we can actually not be gentrifiers to the community and just try to help the community and not just want to take over with whatever the ideas that we have. We're always generating ideas, right? But sometimes those ideas don't need to be imposed to a culture that is very happy with how their way of life is. And that could be something that I see happens a lot with the expat community.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine as well.
Alice, do you want to add anything to that?
I would say challenging for me has been dating so far. It's especially if like the male female dynamics where like a man should have more money, like take you out on a date, all of that. That I feel like is very awkward because yeah, especially with local men, it's like it's just awkward. It is. I don't know how else to like describe it. But like, yeah, when you're talking about financial, I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, that's one of the things. It's like I want to hang out with locals. I want to go out with local men, but like they might not have as much money as I do. So like going out is a different. I mean, even guys here don't have enough money to go out, but it's even worse when you're traveling to different countries, and that is definitely a challenge, I would say. And not that I care, but I mean, yeah, I think it's just the dynamics change basically. So that as well, on both sides, I agree. Like the financial, some people have a lot, some people have a lot less, and it's awkward to navigate that for sure.
Super, super important points and realistic. Um, one thing I want to know is when you are away, there's still relationships back home that you have cultivated, or even in other places, wherever you have laid your hat throughout your journey. How do you maintain these long distance relationships with like your friends or your family back home when you're away for so long? I know some people may be curious about like losing that connection with people that they really care about when they physically move out of country.
I think the people you really care about and who really care about you, you'll actually see who they are. It's going to weed out like all the acquaintances, the people who weren't that invested. It's actually a great weeding out process of like people who care about you and you care about and how much you want to invest in it. And if you both care about it, your relationship, you both invest and are intentional and like to reach out to each other and communicate. I think for me, I just really saw a lot of people who I was like, oh, it's circumstantial, it was convenience, we were just intersecting paths, but it wasn't necessarily the friends that I would have long term. And the people who are actually my friends long term are reveal themselves in a different way, and you just have different ways of communicating with different people. And you have to be just really intentional with making time to like check in with people and make it a thing. When you really like someone and you're like, okay, no, I want to stay friends. And I know with digital nomad life, we come and we go. So we really have to make it an effort to check in with each other.
Like that. Yeah. There's gotta be intentionality behind it. I've seen that and experienced that in my lived experience as well. Good point.
I definitely agree with what Alice has to say just about being intentional. But I think one thing that I have found is that the people that I really connect with, I can go long periods of time without talking to them and still feel like the moment we talk, we just pick back up where we left off. And those are the types of connections that I absolutely love. And I know that living abroad is kind of a challenging concept when you're also thinking about like time zones and differences and like scheduling, and we're all very busy people. And so I think I hold a lot of grace for all of the people in my life who don't constantly check in, but will send me a funny meme or something on Instagram, or just send something in relation to like they're thinking about me. And I think that's been really helpful, just to remember to have grace for those people. I know a lot of my friends are doing many different things in their lives and raising families and things like that. So it takes up that extra time. But I definitely do make it a point to, check in with my people, especially like the elders in my life. My grandmother, that's somebody that is 82, so constantly communicating with her is kind of important. Helps to keep us, our brains sharp together.